Good afternoon, this is Pam with Follow Your Brush. I was playing today and want to invite you to come with me and do some experimenting. If you've never followed me before and this is your first time, welcome. I'm glad you stopped by to look at my little channel. And I just like to play with watercolor and all types of pigments and colors and just have a good time. Today I was playing with my Luchetti Sketchbook again. This is the one that is, it lays flat like that and has the seamless, almost imperceptible seam that you can paint over. So today I thought, well, let me try this with some granulate paints and just see how it does. I was playing with my Schmincke colors again. So I was dipping into the granulating colors that this last 8. And what I like to do is just put a bunch of water down and then put the paint in there and watch it just trickle down. So that's what I did with this painting. Now I also threw some yellows in there, as you can see, and some, I just literally just throwing stuff on here. Just haphazard actually, and then just kind of following where it went. But then when it dried, I wanted to come back. I actually kind of pleased with this. See my little splashy splatter painting. I wanted to come back in and maybe accentuate some of the darks after it dried. So what I have done, and this is what I thought I might share with you, I follow Buffy Kauffman. It's called Watercolor Pour. If you've never watched her, she's on YouTube, and some of it is member only, but for memberships. But you can also, I think she has some free videos that you can watch as well. She's a lot of fun, and she's always coming up with something new that I never in my wildest dreams would have thought of. So thing she has done is to create her own watercolor ink, she calls it. Ordered these little jars, empty jars from Amazon. I'll have to look up and see where I actually got them from. I'll look on my orders and post it in the description. But they're empty bottles, and then what she does is she squeezes some color in there and then adds some water, shakes it up real well, and then she uses her Kakamori nib, which I never thought of using that with my watercolor, and she calls this her ink. So she makes her own dark or whatever color inks. But I wanted a darker shade. What I did use with this when I was originally painting it with my Schmincke colors was the, let me check the names again right. Glacier Black. And I used some of the Urban Red. It says Forest Brown, but I'm still convinced that it's Forest Green, even though that's how they labeled it. I did use some, I think I used a little bit of green umber too, maybe some Perylene green is what I splattered on here. Some of that you don't really see anymore. But I wanted to come back in and touch up some of the darks areas after it dried. I'm really kind of liking this painting. And so I wanted to share that with you while I'm doing it. So just dip this in there with my little ink that I made and kind of tap it on the side. And then I'm going to look for the darker areas after it dried and just come in and just kind of touch those areas up. Now I know that's looking really dark, and it is when I first put it on. But what I did down here, I've already done some of these areas. Then I came back with my brush and kind of softened these out with my brush. And this color I put in, I didn't even tell you what I put in here to mix together. I wanted kind of a dark shade. But what I chose was a lunar blue, and then the other one that I chose was sepia. I put those two together, and they kind of made a nice little gray is actually what they made. Then I came in here with my brush, kind of smooshed this around, soften the lines, and I'm sorry, I'm thinking while I'm painting. That's why I don't usually paint online, because I need time to think. And I softened this, and so then when it dries, it's kind of going to give a soft look and not a super hard edge. I like the softness. You see that? So it's almost like a little. Whoops! I didn't mean to do that. I want to use my nib. It's almost like a little negative painting, but I'm cutting in with my nib, my Kakamori nib first. So what I'm doing is looking for the darks where it automatically just kind of changed the way it dried. It's how it just kind of showed up when it dried. So when you let it dry, I'm really bad about that. I'm really bad about continuing to paint when it needs to dry and not giving it time to breathe. That's one of my bad habits. But when I do let it dry and come back, then I get these beautiful shadows and shapes, the way the paint just kind of let itself settle. And I like looking for those and then accentuating them. It's like, kind of reminds me of, when we were kids, maybe when you were a kid, I don't know. You play with those highlight magazines and they have hidden pictures. It's kind of what it reminds me of. Now some of this, I'm actually not super crazy about where I put it, but when I soften it with the brush, I can go back and work that out. Just trying to see, the Kakamori nib gives me a nice line. So let's wet this area. Not a super wet brush, but just enough to kind of soften these edges and maybe bring it up a little bit. I don't want it super dark, but yet I want to get some of these, suggested shadows in there as well. Because you don't see leaves. There are shadows in the trees. So this is kind of fun. I'm actually enjoying the way this is turning out. This paper, I may have mentioned yesterday in my review of this Luchetti Sketchbook, that it is a 300-pound paper, so it's thicker than a normal sketchbook. And it has these seams that you can go right over. So I'm liking that. I'm really liking that, the way that's coming out. And that's why I wanted to share it with you. I thought this was kind of fun, and it's a little different than what I normally do. And let me come back in with my Kakamori nib again. So I'm just doing a little bit at a time. This part I did earlier, and that has already dried. So I like that. Actually, a lot of painting I have found is looking for the shapes and shadows in your subjects. So this one, I'm obviously not using a reference photo. This is just imaginary as I went, just seeing what would happen. But when you're using a reference photo and you're looking for shapes and shadows. I read a quote that Monet said. They asked him about his painting, and he said, "I just look for shapes and then I paint the shapes." So I just think it's kind of cool, actually. So a lot of painting is just looking for those shapes. If you have trouble finding shapes, I recommend a really fun exercise. Maybe I'll just do another video on that. But what I used to do when I was first starting, and I haven't done it for a while, but it's a lot of fun, and that is just splattering your paint on the paper. Just get a nice glob of watercolor and just splatter, 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 and just let it take shapes and dry. And when it's totally dry, then my granddaughter and I would go back in, and it's a lot of fun to do with kids too. Go back in and see what kind of shapes you can find. You might find, like, look at this. When I did this, when this dried down here, to me, I see a little kitty cat. You see that little kitty cat? Maybe that's because I have cats all over my house. But I just see a kitty cat in there. And so that's a fun way to just play and just look for shapes after it's dry. And then now I've also learned that it's kind of part of negative painting. What you want to do is you paint the shadows and not the main subject. That took me a long, long time to comprehend. And I'm not sure why, because once you begin to see the negative spaces, the spaces in between instead of the subject, it's kind of fun to paint that way. And that's kind of what I'm doing with this ink. Well, it's watercolor ink, this ink that I made myself. I'm looking for the darks where it dried and left dark spots and play on those. And then come in and see, I really love the texture that's giving me on that tree. Isn't that fun? Looks like another kitty cat there. So that was what I was doing this evening, and I just thought you might want to see it. Whoops, it would help if I put the tip in there instead of the handle. And then it can also help you to punch up any areas that maybe you don't like. For instance, I got too much of this yellow up in here, to my liking anyway. So I kind of want to fix that up a little bit. So this will help me. And you know, branches are, they don't all show through the leaves. Some do. I'm going to go over this with my brush too, so we'll soften some of this. I don't want it too hard. I like soft edges. But I just thought this was fun, and I thought, well, let me show you some of this, what I'm doing. I was looking at some of my old videos tonight, and actually I found a couple that from a few years ago that I was really enjoying. Made me want to get out some of those supplies that I was using back then. All right, let me, I don't want to get too carried away here, so let me get my brush back out and soften these while they can still be softened. And I'll finish up for the night. But just wanted to share that with you. I hope you had a good weekend. This is a Sunday evening, and in the kitchen, just kind of playing in here. And just having a good evening, playing with my paints. My Luchetti Sketchbook. And my Schmincke paints. And just having some fun playing. So I hope you had a good weekend as well. And I'll let you go for now. Thank you for popping in and joining me as I play a little bit here. If you want to try doing these little, this little ink trick, it doesn't have to be a Kakamori nib. It can be any type of pen nib, you know, fountain pen, whatever. But anyway, we'll let this dry and see how that works. See how these are drying, and it just kind of gives that nice mottled look. In the tree, like their shadows. So this is my little fun tree today. Still not real crazy about this, but I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. But anyway, thanks for popping in and following my brush with me this evening. Have a great week, and be sure you all things that you do, follow your brush. Bye.